Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Mic is Open podcast. I'm your host, Bela Albert. Today, we're going to talk about growth, adulthood. Why did you really want to become that adult? Why did you want to get out of your parents' house? Today, we're going to talk about growth and adulthood. Why did you want to become an adult so bad? Why did you want to get out of your parents' house and be by yourself? Personally, from my own story, having been brought up by strict parents, or let me say fairly strict parents, because they allowed me to do some things, and at the same time, there was a lot of things that I was not allowed to do. You know, when you want to go out, you're being taken to where you're going. When you want to do things, you always have instructions, like guidelines to be like, you can do this, you cannot do this. Even if sometimes you really felt what you're doing is right, but you see, you find your parents telling you, oh, this is not okay, don't do this, don't do that. You find even making friends was something very, very difficult. Personally, I was taught to not trust people from a very young age, which is actually not a bad thing because it has helped me so much in future in dealing with a lot of things from people and knowing how to handle people depending on their characters. You find your parent had to approve every single person that he or she sees around you. So making friends was like a hard thing, especially if you're not somebody who lives in an area where you can actually talk to your neighbor, talk to people in the estate. You know, if you've been brought up alone, like in your compound, and you have such strict parents, I'm sure you're relating with what I'm saying. Another thing was going out. Going out was always an issue. If you wanted to go out, let's say you're going to meet up some people, or you have an excuse of you're attending some occasion or some party for some friend, your parent, for example, my parent, had to know the contact information of the other parent. My parent gave you timelines, and you could never go back home late. And you know, late doesn't mean a timeline of like 6 o'clock or 7 p.m. No. Going late, according to my parents, was like this. You go out, let's say at 12 p.m., 12 in the afternoon, and you're back at home, say at 6. So the question that my parents is going to ask you was, all those hours in between, what were you doing? Where were you all those hours? So that was lateness in my compound, in my home, according to how my parent was bringing me up. If your parent called you, say your mom or your dad, now I'm giving my story, you know. So let's say if they called me, if I'm out with my sisters, one of us should obviously have a phone. And if she doesn't pick, because I only have sisters, if she doesn't pick, that would be a problem. If she doesn't pick up the call and my parent calls me again and I do not pick, now that is a huge, huge problem. And you know, being brought up by African parents, how disciplining was something that they really took to heart. Like, they wanted to discipline the kid. And some time back, not actually so long ago, I remember asking my dad, bringing me up like this, like he was very strict, you know, you would prevent me from doing a lot of things. How has that helped me? He got so mad actually. He was like, do you know you would not have become the person that you are today if it's not for the strict upbringing that I brought you up in? Well, I'm going to talk about parenting some other time in another episode. Today we're not talking about parenting, but we're going to look at some of the ways parents bring us up and how they tend to shape us in different ways, because different parents have different kinds of disciplining their children. You find a parent that has never physically spanked. They've never spanked their kid, and you find the kid is smart, very disciplined, and he or she knows how to conduct themselves in a very respectable manner. And you can also find a scenario where, as a parent who has always spanked their children, their kids, and you find the kids with some very, very crooked behaviors. That is some of my stories, and without further ado, let me dive into your views on how and why, the reason most of you wanted to grow up and get out of your parents' house. The comment that had a lot of people was to get out of the parents' house. That had the most number of people. We have also to have privacy, to make decisions. We also have to do everything without restrictions. People look like they were really pissed with having restrictions to every decision that they were making. The other comment was to be independent. Pretty interesting. And the last one, no, the last but not the least, was to have the freedom of dating. Yes. And then we also have girlhood friendships. Looks like this one was actually a restriction not only in my family, but a lot of families, yeah. So categorizing the comments and the views that most of you brought in, I'm going to say the number one thing that made people so much want to get out of the parents' house was to have freedom. And I'm going to look at the freedom of going out as the first one. People want to go out without any restrictions. People want to go out and come back at the time that they want. Personally, I wanted that so much, so much actually. And the moment I got to campus, because that is the time that I actually got to have my own freedom, I was like, okay, now I can go out and come back. You know, my parents were still calling in. They were like, are you already back at the house? What are you doing? Where are you at this time? They used to like monitor my movements, but they would actually advise me accordingly. If you're going out with friends, make sure you have these kind of shoes. Actually, there's this time my dad told me, make sure if you're wearing high heels, make sure you carry flat shoes, because anything can happen anytime. Let's give a shout out to our parents who always take care of us. You know, we recognize that very much. The other one is the freedom of having sex. Actually, a lot of people made this comment. They were like, I wanted to have sex in peace. I wanted to like have a partner in peace, get to have a boyfriend, a lover. You know, a lot of people wanted to actually grow up and experience what is it that you've always been restricted from doing. For me, dating when I was still in high school, of course, high school. I'm not the person who will advocate for dating when you're in primary school, honestly, because that's a lot of distraction. But even in high school, I would admit, I mean, this is the stage where you're in adolescence, you're maturing, and there's a lot of suitors. Definitely, suitors will come, but it's a matter of how you respond to that. Personally, in our home, dating in high school is actually prohibited. It is prohibited. Bringing friends at home was allowed for me ever since I was in primary school. I used to bring friends over when we're having a party, when I'm hosting my birthday party, when I'm doing something like, say, a group discussion, and I talk to my parents, I'd be like, okay, you can bring them over. They can come over, you understand? Even in high school, I was given the freedom of bringing friends at home. Actually, my parents were like, I want to see your friends. Don't hide your friends. You know, so if I get lost, actually, for example, I've never gotten lost. But in case I got lost, my parents knew where to check, where to look. And you remember me saying that if I'm going, for example, to a certain party, my parents always made sure to have the contact of where I'm going and who I'm with at that time, the adults, so that they'll be in communication in case I'm late, in case something happens, there's someone accountable at that particular time. Getting to campus, this is when I realized that at least now you're allowed to like see someone. But of course, that is the stage where my parents started personally advising me and telling me, like they would ask me, are you seeing someone? Are you talking to someone? You know? And they would advise me. So I was like, okay, it started kicking in. Like they've already started allowing me to see someone. But if this thing happened when I was in my parents' house, hey, if they actually imagined I'm dating or seeing someone in my parents' house, I'd be so grounded. I would not be allowed to go out or not be allowed to have a phone. I'll not be allowed to communicate to the imaginary person at any cost. That is my parents, and I'm talking on behalf of the people that have such parents like mine. We know how it is. We know how it feels. And sometimes, you know, during adolescence, you're like thinking, and you know, when you get to the older stages, like the university level, and looking back is when you actually realize your parent wanted something good for you. Imagine if you're allowed to get into sexual relations with someone, whether you're a boy or whether you're a girl, at a tender age, by your parents. What are your parents' best interests for you? Honestly, wouldn't tell me your parents wants the best for you. But you know, when your parents wants the best for you, your parent, he or she, realizes that you're actually maturing, that you're actually in adolescence, that you're actually in a stage where you're in puberty and you're growing up and you're maturing to become this man, this lady, this woman that the society wants to be proud of. Being that person that the society is looking at you. Your parents will actually, regardless of whether they imagine you in sexual relations or not, they are going to give you sex education. That is one thing for sure. They're going to give you sex education. They're going to educate you. They're going to teach you the life skills that you need in order to maneuver out there, because you actually need that for sure. The other point is actually to be able to make decisions on your own. There's this time when I was growing up, I was like, do you really have to decide whether I have to do this or not? You know, it actually got to a point where I remember I actually told my dad, you're being so overprotective of me. And that is why, and he was like, yes, I have to be overprotective of you, because if I don't, who will protect you? You know, those were his words. But I'm not like trying to go on the side of the parent. I'm actually trying to bring out the feelings that were there that actually made me want to become an adult. Because believe you me, I was in that space. I experienced the feeling of wanting to get out of that house, be myself. So being able to make decisions on my own, whether I feel like this is bad, whether I feel like I don't feel like doing this and I'm not doing this. For example, right now at my own place, if I decide I want to do the dishes, I'll do them. If I decide I don't want to do the dishes, I will not do the dishes. If I decide I'm so tired, I'm not gonna cook, and then I buy food. If I decide, well, I should call in someone to like do the laundry and make the house tidy. You cannot do some things at your parents' house. If you're asked to do this, you're going to actually do that. If the parent says yes, it's always a yes, especially with African parents. At least now, with this new generation, at least they get to involve the kids in their own upbringing. Actually, you find a parent will have a consensus with their kids to decide maybe on the punishment that you're going to get in case you do a certain mistake. But those things were actually never there. Well, let me speak for myself. I didn't get that kind of upbringing. I never got that kind of space where I have to discuss my punishment. If my mom comes right now and you've done a mistake and I'm telling you something, you see, the closest thing that can actually discipline you on her range, that is exactly what you're going to use. If it's a glass that's there, I'm guessing some parents can actually use that glass. It's actually up to the kid to dodge the glass. If it's a remote, the parents will actually throw that remote at you. If it's a pillow, the pillow is going to serve as a disciplining weapon. If it's going to be any utensil from the kitchen, for example, that one that I used to cook ugali that we call mwiko, that was actually the most common. That one and the slippers. That is what the parent is going to use. So there was no consensus and there's no negotiation like you have to do this, and if you don't do this, this is what is going to happen. And I actually get to choose the punishment. No, I didn't get that. So I wanted so much to make decisions on my own. And according to most of you, your comments, your views, I understand that is actually something that most of you actually and really wanted to do. Another thing was to be able to maneuver through life on my own and wanting to actually accomplish something on my own. Most people have talked about this. That goes hand in hand with independence. I remember some time back when I was growing up, I was actually in high school. It was actually the COVID period. And I felt so bored and I wanted a source of income. I actually told my parents, we can go to a thrift shop. I get the thrifted clothes so that I sell. I went and picked up some clothes, and 1 week, 2 weeks, no clothes was bought. And my parents, actually particularly my dad, he's actually my best friend. He slammed me with the words, "You have poor taste. That is why nobody is buying the clothes that you bought to sell." Those are the words that he slammed me with. Can you imagine? But I took it lightly. I laughed it off. He also laughed it off. It was nothing personal. So I tried also something. I decided, because I noticed fast food go fast. So I decided one time I'm going to wake up early and talk to my mom so that she's going to help me make the dough. And I decided to make mandazis for breakfast. So I talked to her. Well, I had some savings that I used because, African parents, I just can't go to my mom and be like, "Mom, I need cooking oil, I need milk, I need flour to make the dough and to make the mandazis." No African parent would actually believe in that, especially from a kid, from a teenager. She'd be like, "You're crazy." Or maybe you'll just cook, but eventually we'll eat them here in the house. She actually helped me make the dough, and I cooked the mandazis. Some became too crunchy, but some became okay. And I decided I'm not going to wait for people to come to where I am. If you remember during my first episode, giving a storyline of my life and how I've been, I mentioned something. I learned business ever since I was very little. That was actually the first business that I actually got to practice and to do on my own. So I decided I'm not going to wait for customers. I'm going to go to where they are. and it was a neighborhood. So I decided to walk the mandazis to them. I go knock and be like, hey, I'm selling these mandazis, you know, for breakfast. And it was breakfast time actually. They could not resist it. Number one, they were very sweet. Two, only a kid who could resist a sweet kid coming to sell to them something that they actually want. And then number two, it was at the right time. It was actually at the right time because I was selling the mandazis in the morning when I was so sure they are having breakfast at that time. I made actually very nice sales because I sold the mandazis in the neighborhood. And then when I got home, apparently my dad got to hear of my small business. He got so furious. Yeah, he got furious. He was like, oh, why are you doing this? Everything that comes, the mates that sometimes they're actually true about the people in the village. You know how it is. And so he was so worried that someone might had given me some money with an intention of like hurting me. You know how African communities are. Guys, I know you understand me. And somebody who's watching this that's not from Africa, your African friends can tell you this and make you understand what I mean. So he actually wanted to like dispose the money. I got so bitter, I won't lie to you guys. I was like, you should be supporting me. You should be like, oh, my kid, my girl here is thinking big and she's thinking business at her age, but I'm here getting backlashes because I decided to go out without telling him, and me telling him that, well, my mom knows. He's always like, your mom is a foreigner. She doesn't know a lot of things from this place, so get the advice from me. Not like they doing different parenting, but I'm sure you guys understand. Sometime when you have a certain problem, you take it to your father. When you have another certain problem, you take it to your mom. So that is how it was. But that was what made me feel so bad. And the moment that I got to get out of that house, I had the chance of doing business, to explore. I was not afraid of failing. I was not afraid of making my own decisions and learning from my own decisions, because that is actually what most of us who said that they wanted to make decisions of our own and maneuver in this life, in this world. If it's in the field of business, if it's in the field of sports, if it's exploring your talent or any other thing that you are blessed with. Sometimes if you find your parent was preventing you from doing that, you find the moment you get a chance to go out of that house, you get a chance of doing it yourself. Let's dive into why some people do not embrace growth and adulthood. We have had examples of people, say in their 30s, early 30s, late 30s, living with their parents. For some ladies, I feel like it can be accommodated because unless a lady wants to go out of the parents' house before they are actually married, but to be honest, I feel like that is the kind of lady who doesn't want anything for herself. But for men, we actually have men who in their late 30s, they are still living in their parents' houses. But that is not even the worst part. The worst part is if you, for example, go to a man, I'm sure some of you have encountered friends or maybe partners who are living with their parents. You find someone is being scolded at his age. Oh, you've not washed the utensils. Oh, you've not cleaned the house. Oh, you're waking up at 10. What do you think you're doing in this house? So let's look deep and into why some people don't like embracing growth and adulthood. They actually don't want to come out of their parents' houses. The first point is upbringing. Some people do not want to let go of their parents' love or do not want to experience their parents' love when they are far away from them, or they do not want to get over the kind of treatment that they used to get when they were at home. You find maybe the kid was so spoiled growing up. The kid was like, I want this, that is what you get. If you ask for this, this is what you get. You find a kid who has not been denied everything. I'm not trying to project that a kid who gets whatever he or she wants while growing up, being spoiled by the parent, is actually the kind of kid that ends up at the parent's house. We actually have such kids that do not like that kind of life. Like, they do not like living with their parents. They want their own freedom. They want to do whatever they want at the time that they want without anybody's timeline. You understand? But upbringing matters so much with these adults that have refused to embrace adulthood and are still in their parents' houses. The second point, we have responsibilities. Adulthood comes with a lot of responsibilities. We do not handle responsibilities the same way. The way I handle my thing is not the way somebody else will handle their thing. There are many ways to kill a rat, but some people really evade responsibilities. That is why you find they still want to be under the parent. Like, the parent is still providing for them, the parent is still doing things for them, things that they should be doing at their age. We have to acknowledge that. We have to accept that as a reality, and we have to look at these things in the community because we live with these things in the society. Nobody told me that so much will be expected of me. Nobody told me that I'll have people one day somewhere, whether in school, whether where I work, whether in the society, that are looking up to me, and that is actually our responsibility. So adulthood comes with a lot of consequences, and that takes us to the next point. The decisions that you make, you have consequences that are either negative or positive. But consequences will always be there. And this is what some of the people really try to avoid. But consequences will always be there. And something that I always wanted, and I remember having told my parents some time back, you're being too strict on me. Let me make a choice that I can face the own consequence. But he was like, no, not in my house, no. You have to get out first. You have to leave my house first so that you can be able to make the decisions on yourself, for yourself. There will always be consequences of your actions. The other point is fear of unknown, the fear of not making it. I actually talked to a few people, and in particular the male gender, and they told me there's nothing as bad as going out of your parents' house, and because you failed, you went back to your parents' house. And also there's that societal expectation of you. What should you have accomplished at this time? What should you have done at this particular time? Or what should you be doing at that particular time? So most people fear not making it. Most people fear things might go wrong. You invest in something and it just backfires. So we have people who are afraid of that, and you find they just want to remain in their parents' houses and they're okay with it. And also we have to recognize those people who we have cultures where people live in their parents' houses. People, as long as you're an adult, you date, you go out there, you date, you have a partner, you bring them in your parents' house. You go out there, do your thing, your parent is okay with it. We have people like that. We also have to acknowledge and understand that we have such people in the society. Nothing is wrong. The parent is okay with the kid being there. The kid is totally fine with being in the parent's house, and that is just how life is. All that said, let's embrace growth. Let's embrace adulthood, and everything that comes with it. Remember, you have the power to go after your dream life today. Nobody is going to do that for you, and you will never be younger than you are today. It's not going to be easy. Nobody said it's going to be easy. And in fact, nobody said it should be easy. But believe me, giving up is never an option. If someone else can, so can you. There is actually nothing special about the person who has made it in life. That person that you look up to and you feel like, oh, he or she has made it, this person has made it. There is nothing special about that person. The person just decided not to give up, embrace growth, and understand that growth comes with challenges. Challenges are not hindrances to achieving your goals and your dream. Before you go to sleep, just analyze yourself for the day. Check, are you better than the person that you were yesterday? Don't compare yourself to anybody. You owe success to nobody but to yourself. So always make sure you're a better version of yourself each and every single day. Doesn't matter what you're trying to do, whether it's hitting the gym, trying new habits, starting a business, going into content creation, always make sure you try to be the best version of yourself, the best version of the person you want to become. And slowly by slowly, you're going to be living in the reality of your dreams. I'm glad you stuck with me throughout the episode, and I hope we are all going to embrace this journey of growth and adulthood, and we are not going to look at the challenges or the obstacles as barriers. Rather, they're going to propel you to becoming the best version of yourself. Thank you, and see you on the next episode. Stay tuned.